Okay, let's begin. My mind thought of suicide today. I am now scared about my situation. Dear Hamza, my emotions fluctuate throughout the day. Sometimes I feel happy, and other times I start having extremely sad thoughts that make me feel depressed. I occasionally quiet my self improvement journey, reflecting on how much I've managed to achieve in just 6 months. But then my mind compares it to the memories I have from before the journey began. Back then, I was a chump, not exercising properly, eating whatever I wanted, playing games until late at night. My mind reminds me of my past almost every day, making me think about how carefree life was when I was just having a good time with friends, playing video games, and hanging out. Yeah, often when guys get onto self improvement, you often start to relish the days before you knew the truth of life, that you were sabotaging your future success. It's kind of like when fat people discover the concept of losing weight and calorie counting and eating clean and how many calories all the bullshit food has. You often miss the days where you were ignorant in bliss. That doesn't mean that you should go back. Like, I've heard from guys who say, oh, well, I was having more fun before this and my life was better before self-improvement, so I'm going to go back. And then I see the same guys come back 6 months later, be like, oh, I've been in such a rut for 6 months and I played games and I watched porn and I don't know what to do. It's like, yeah, because you're just trying to like be too intelligent, thinking like, oh, but things were better before I knew about the harm that I was doing to myself, so I'm going to go back to that. You can't go back. Once you've taken like the red pill and your awareness of hard work, discipline, instant and delayed gratification is here, you can't go back. You're past that point. You can't go back. I've taken that away from you now. So you can hate me for it and think, oh, fuck this guy. He told me about self-improvement. He made me feel bad about the previous habits I was doing. They were bad for you. Should the fat guy be annoyed at the doctor who tells him that he might be developing diabetes just because he was like ignorant in bliss beforehand? Should the cancer patient be pissed off at the doctor who tells him, oh yeah, by the way, smoking is causing cancer inside of you? You can hate the bearer of bad news, but the truth is the self-sabotage you were doing was impacting you and reducing your potential. So before you started watching my videos and you were enlightened to the idea of improving yourself and getting away from all these modern sickly addictions, you were enjoying yourself more because no one ever told you the consequences of your actions. People told you that porn was fine. People told you like weird hyper processed food was fine. So of course you're hit with more negative emotions once you realize things aren't fine. But it's not about, like, life is not just about feeling good. You're a man. Life is about choosing some mission, some work that means a lot to you and dedicating yourself to the fullest degree for that. Your self-assessment, your self-respect, your level of happiness and fulfillment correlates with how hard you've worked on your mission, your purpose, and your goals. So don't try and go back to the fairyland, like Disney World princess bullshit of ignorance before you knew that porn was a problem and like playing video games was sapping your potential as a young man. Don't fall for that bullshit of trying to backtrack. This is what I'm going to say to Lorenzo and also for anyone else who's watching this. You probably look back in envy for those days that things were easier before you grew up to become a man. This is just part of being a man. It's like being a man, like imagine a few hundred years ago, needing to like work in the factories and you're there like, remembering the days that you didn't need to work. You'd be looked at like a little wuss, thinking like, yeah, okay, things were easier when you were a kid. Of course they were, but you can't go back to being a little child. You're a man now. You need to toughen up. You can't go back to those good old days where it was so easy. Other guys are still living in boy psychology. Yeah, sure. Let them. Don't try and join them anymore. Because they'll be hit with the reality when they're struggling with their finances and they want to help their parents, but they can't. Where they can't even get a minimum wage job because 4,000 people apply for a role at McDonald's these days. You can't go back to boy psychology now. You've been told the truth. So the only way is to go forward and to master the life that you're getting into, okay, the self-improvement grind. Does this make sense, right? Because so many guys get onto self-improvement and they want to go back to the point of life, that how life felt before they got onto this path, because life felt so easy. You played video games and watched porn with no guilt. But that's not a good thing. You were just a little child back then. Now that you're a grown man, you understand your actions have consequences. Don't try and forget that lesson, because this is going to help you in the long run. Future you wishes you kept on going on this journey, right? Future you is hoping you don't go back to the fucking, like, oh yeah, you know, the easy days where you stayed up late and you played video games. Yeah, you were a child. It was fine back then. You were like 11 years old, 12, 13 years old. When you're older, it's like you have less tolerance for those things, and you can slip back and think, oh, well, it's fine, you know, Hamza's too strict and all this stuff, and see what happens to your life. See what happens 6 to 12 months from now, because I'll tell you, because I've seen hundreds of guys go through this. They'll slip back to those habits, shit on me and say, oh yeah, Hamza's too strict, he's a bit crazy. And I'll always see them come back 6 months later saying, oh guys, I've been in a rut for 6 months. I've started jacking off like 6 times a day now. I don't know what to do. I thought the self-improvement stuff was making my life worse, but the normal world's actually making it worse. Yeah, when you're a child, you're allowed to like slip up a little bit and have a bit more fun and pleasure and stuff. But you can't go back. It's just the unfortunate truth. You can never go back to those days of, you know, like the nostalgic days of playing Minecraft after school on a cold day, hopping on Skype or Discord with your friends. You can't go back to those days. You're a grown-ass man. And it's interesting because I've tried as well. I've had so many guys tell me like I'm so wrong about video games and it's so good to play. And in the last few years, I've tried a couple of times to play, like in secret. I've never wanted to announce this, but I've kind of like downloaded RuneScape, Minecraft, League of Legends, games that I used to play, and I've thought like, oh, what if everyone else is right? What if I played these games and I get like such a level of peacefulness and it's enjoying, and maybe that even helps me, you know, become more creative and relax and I sleep better, whatever. And it didn't fucking happen. I was sat there thinking like, this is for children. Games are for children. Porn and like, it's not, porn isn't for children, but you get my point of like pleasure and happy moments. Not so, you get my point, right? Not so much happy moments, but like pleasure and carefree mentality is not for men. That's a child, like boy psychology. Don't downgrade yourself to that, because future you will be sacrificed for that. You're not going to be more proud and have more self-respect in the future after you've just fell back into bad habits and you're now starting to play video games thinking, yeah, you know, self-improvement's not, you don't even need to like be that hard, and Hamza doesn't understand balance. Future you 6 months from now, after like the winter arc completes 3 months from now, you're not going to be sat there like, oh, I'm so grateful that I played more video games in the last few months. You are not going to be saying that at all. All this fun pleasure is all just fake, and it turns into pain after a while, especially when you start to think of yourself as a man. If you're like 12 years old and watching this, okay, you've got a bit more space. Go ahead and go play some games and eat some sweeties if you want. But if you're like fucking over 15 years old, bro, it's like, it's time to grow up. I'll explain my problem. I definitely feel, and I'll just quickly give you a caveat. It's time to grow up if you want to grow up, right? If you want to try and stay in boy psychology and you're fine in mediocrity, you're fine without becoming successful, then that's actually fine. Like, don't watch my videos. I've got nothing against you. It's like, you're not my target audience. But if you don't want to be a loser in your life, if you want to be a winner, if you want to become successful, if you want to make more money than 99% of people, if you want to have like more attraction from girls, more respect from guys, if you want to feel like a really fucking winner, like a competitive motherfucker, then you need to do the actions that cause that. You can't slip back into boy psychology. You have to understand like your actions have consequences, and like those days where you were a Jeffrey, you can't be fantasizing about them thinking, oh, life was so carefree. Yeah, you were a child. If you want the results of hard work and success, then you've got to put in the work for that. I'll explain my problem. I definitely feel awesome about how much I've changed since I started my self-improvement journey, but this journey has also shattered many of my childish beliefs, especially about girls. I think back to how foolishly I acted around them and how my girlfriends at school basically used me for company. Yeah, female friends are a cope unless if they are very masculine girls and you are a masculine guy, and then you share the same goal. So men and women can be friends, but with only one type of relationship where she is super, super masculine, you're masculine, and you both get along because you both share the same kind of sexual energy. You don't have polarity between each other. So for example, this is like a super masculine disciplined, maybe even steroid taking power lifter, right? You know, some girls are like athletes. Then if you're a power lifter, you can be friends with her because you've got so much to talk about, and you're probably not even physically attracted to her as well. That you can actually have that as a friendship because she's masculine enough to be kind of similar and relatable to you. Men and women can't be friends, and this bullshit of like in general, right? So masculine guy, feminine girl can't be friends because if she bent over and wanted you to fuck her, you would, which means that you're not a friend, you're just an opportunistic fucker, right? This is what I say to degenerate girls, and they never want to listen to it. A girl who tells you that she's got male friends, I always say to her, this is like an intelligence test to see if she's stupid or not. I always say to her, okay, these male friends, imagine they're back at your place after like a night of celebrating, whatever. You take your clothes off, you bend over, you look at him and tell him to fuck you. Is he gonna fuck you or not? They always go quiet because they know the guy that they think is a friend, now they realize, oh yeah, he would fuck me given the chance. So he's not a friend, he's just opportunity, like he's just a beta male waiting for his hopeful turn to get a shot at the girl, which means it's not a friend, right? A friend who would fuck you is not a friend. That's just a guy who's waiting to fuck, but he's too much of a fucking pussy to bring it up. So men and women generally can't be friends unless if the woman is super, super masculine. I'm doing my best to approach girls, talk to new people, and improve my social situation. And although everything has been going well so far, my mind randomly insults me throughout the day, making me feel depressed. It says things like, look at how happy people are with girlfriends. You don't have any girls who actually want you. Why don't you get a girlfriend? And look at you, you're ridiculous. You can't even get girls. This stems from like internet and porn culture. Notice how you're not talking about a specific girl. If the thought was like, oh, I really want that girl who would be wife quality, but she's not into me, I actually would understand that, right? Imagine like if you were getting the thoughts of like, whoa, that girl is beautiful and I feel too intimidated to talk to her. Whoa, that girl is so wife quality. You know, her family's so respectful. She's such an educated, amazing woman, but I can't get her to... that would actually be kind of understandable as like a negative thought that could fuel you for more growth. But a lot of guys who have watched too much porn, they don't see a woman as a specific woman. They see women as an entity of something they can't get in life. Like this reminds me of being in high school or college with a friend. And he said to me, like, I want to have a girlfriend. And I thought how fucking weird that is. Like, he wasn't talking about a specific girl he liked that he had kind of vetted and thought that she was a good girl. He just wanted, like, the experience of having a girlfriend, which you can understand, but it's quite a toxic way to view human beings. Like, this thought that you're getting shows that you have still, like, internet culture, like Goblin Jeffrey kind of thoughts about girls. The fact that you're viewing them as like an entity rather than a specific person that you may or may not be interested in. So this is stemming from, or this will cause a huge feeling of scarcity mindset where you're going to start to put women on a pedestal, not because a specific girl is high quality, but just because you're literally viewing women as like God, basically. I can imagine you're not a religious guy because religious guys often like guys who are actually religious, not just, you know, fake Muslims, fake Christians who say they are, but they don't even fucking pray or anything. But basically, you always worship something in life, and most guys worship women. Not a specific woman, but women as a whole because of porn and sex culture. This is a red flag to me as something psychological that we need to improve on. Like, these are the kinds of thoughts he's getting. Yeah, it's negative thoughts and that doesn't feel nice, but the way that you view women shows a lot about you. If there's a specific girl you've got a crush on and you really think to yourself like, damn, she's such a high quality girl, that's fine. And if you feel like kind of insecure, you're like, oh, I couldn't get her right now, I would understand that. And, you know, I'd be able to kind of help you and think, oh no, we've got to build you up, give it a try anyway, just go shoot your shot. But the guy who kind of sees like women in general above him has some weird fucked up dynamic in his mind where like he's needy as fuck. It's not even about a specific girl he thinks is high quality. He just wants if I don't have a woman, I'm X. He's sold himself a story that guys with women are happier, more successful, better men than guys without women, which is often not the case. A lot of guys who've got girls fucking hate their lives. There's a phrase like, for no matter how beautiful a girl is, there's a guy who's stressed with her, or there's a guy who's like tired of fucking her or something. A lot of guys who struggle with girls have this kind of mindset, and it's not going to serve you to think of women as this pedestalized icons that you worship. You've got to look at women individually and think, is this a high quality girl? Because 90% of the time, 99% of the time, you'll say, no, she vapes. No, she's a degenerate. No, she's posting like thirst traps on Instagram. But this version of you that's thinking these kinds of thoughts, you'll see the girl who's posting thirst traps, who smokes the vape, and you'll still kind of pursue her because you're so needy. And so this is a massive red flag for some pain to come up in the future. If you're finding yourself thinking like this, you need to start to reframe your thoughts and your desire with women and think, it's not women that I want, it's a high quality woman. I'm gonna have high standards. You don't go up to a girl and hope that she likes you. You go up to a girl to find out if you like her. But when you're so horny because of porn and sex culture, you almost don't even think about if you like her, because you'll just take anything you can get. But you don't want the low tier women there. It's literally worse having a low tier woman who causes problems in your life than basically just being a single guy. It's so much worse having a low quality girl than just being single and not having any girls in your life. I'm telling you, like, the headache that like an annoying girl can cause in your life is fucking huge. And that movement of like men going their own way is so much better than being with a low quality girl. The only thing better than like going your own way, going like the sort of sigma male grind set way, is actually attracting a good girl. Like, that's the best case scenario. Then you can have a family, you can have children, awesome. But if you can't attract like high quality girls right now, girls who don't vape, who aren't posting their body on social media, who haven't like sucked a fucking deep throated your friend or some guy that you know from school or whatever, those girls are not worth your time, and you'll literally have a better life avoiding most girls, honestly. These thoughts hit me hard, and honestly, sometimes I feel like crying. You know that it's not something that happens overnight, but at the same time, I can't manage to control these thoughts. I really want them to stop because I've had enough. So let me teach you how to control thoughts, because once you understand this, you'll be able to avoid a lot of the negative problems. Because for most people, it isn't really life circumstances that makes them depressed. It's not the house they live in, how much money they make, all of that stuff that people think causes happiness or unhappiness. It's basically just your thoughts. Like, there's someone with a worse physique than you, a worse house than you, with less girls in his life than you, who's happier than you just because he thinks better than you. The Shakespeare's quote, "Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so." So how do you think better in a way that doesn't sap your happiness and your fulfillment? This is exactly what you do. You have to realize that there's two kinds of thoughts. There's manual thoughts and there's automatic thoughts. Automatic thoughts are the thoughts that we're used to. It's just we're going about our day and new thoughts generate and pop up in our mind randomly. We don't really control them. Thoughts just pop up. Oh, that guy's got a girlfriend. That's a Chad. I've got to do that thing, right? Just random fucking thoughts. It said that you have like 60,000 of these per day. Random thoughts that just appear. Manual thoughts are thoughts that you manually think in your mind, like by commanding your brain to think so. So turn on a manual thought in your brain right now. Like force your brain to say whatever sentence you can think of right now. You've just implanted a manual thought in your mind. Now, here's the biggest key of all. The automatic thoughts that we get are determined by the manual thoughts that we put in. The reason why many of us have quite negative automatic thoughts, the ones that just pop up that make us feel negative, is because most of us have manually implanted negative thoughts. We see a picture of someone and we think, oh, he's more attractive than me. We manually have done that. We have manually consumed information through movies and video games and porn and TV shows and the internet and everything, which has been more negative than positive. So we've manually implanted information to the point that becomes like a habit. Then we start automatically thinking in that way. So what we want, the goal, is to have positive automatic thoughts, right? We want to be like driving to school or something and randomly think of something that's positive. Oh, you worked really hard yesterday. I really like my friend. She really helped me for this thing. Oh, I really like my friend. He really helped me for this thing. Oh, I feel really good today. Oh, I'm so grateful for my mother. I can't wait for a hard day's work, whatever. We want those thoughts to randomly appear, right? They will randomly appear more often, if we more often induce manual thoughts into our brain of the ones that we want. Basically, think more positive manual thoughts. Manually say something nice to yourself in your mind right now. I look good today. Like, just think it in your mind. I've worked really hard this morning. I've stayed consistent in the gym for 10 years straight. The more of these manual thoughts that you implant in your mind, the more likely they are to come out automatically. This is why gratitude journaling is an absolute superpower, because the more you gratitude journal, I am grateful for my mother, I am grateful for my dog, I'm so grateful for my girlfriend, I'm grateful for my teacher who spent extra time with me yesterday, whatever. Those are manual thoughts. The more times you gratitude journal and you write down what you appreciate, the more likely those thoughts will appear automatically in your brain just throughout the day, which is awesome. So Lorenzo says, I started meditating and journaling about 2 weeks ago and I've seen some improvements. I have fewer random thoughts during the day, but the kind of thoughts I mentioned above still won't go away. So one thing is, you can't push down thoughts. Never try to push down a thought. So if you get a thought, I feel like killing myself, I'm so lonely, why don't I have a girlfriend, that guy's got a girlfriend, that guy's more attractive than me, why isn't she texting back? Never try to push down a thought. That's when it becomes toxic. And whenever there's a thought that you don't like, never ever try and push it away. Sit with it. Almost laugh at it like a weird psychopath and think, I didn't even fucking like manually think of that. Isn't it crazy how the human brain works, where that kind of thing would just appear automatically in my mind because I didn't even choose to have that thought. You don't push down thoughts, you add in new manual ones. So when some of these like thoughts come in, you sit there for a moment and even practically ask yourself, is there any lesson that I can gain from this? And you like journal with a logical mind. Okay, right now I'm thinking really negatively about the fact that I don't have a girlfriend. Is that really a negative situation? Because I don't really know any girls that I actually really want to date. Like, there's girls that I'd probably have sex with, and I'd love it if they text me more, if they wanted me, but I don't really think that they're like wife quality. So should I really be upset if they don't really like me? Like, it'd be lovely if they did like me, but like, if they don't, am I really losing anything? Because I wasn't going to marry any of these girls. I didn't even want to be with them. I don't really respect them. Then you're like, okay, well, I feel bad. Yeah, fairly lonely. Do I want a girlfriend right now? Is that definitely like the best time for me to get into a relationship? Like, exam season's coming up, and what if I get more distracted like texting girls? Maybe right now I don't pursue girls, just for now. Maybe just a couple of months I just focus because the exams are coming up and I really have this goal with my business or bulking in the gym or whatever. And I'm just going to focus on those. So yeah, I feel pretty bad that I don't have a girlfriend. Oh well, I'm focused on my own things. I'm trying to be social as possible to fill my day and eventually have too many people to talk to, hoping that keeping busy with friends will make my mind forget these thoughts. However, I'm not sure how effective this will be or will fix the problem. Yeah, if you can go get into a flow state, that will definitely help. So when I go home, like, I have went home fairly frequently in the last few years. I basically like move out, go travel, then I'll go back to my parents' home. That's like my kind of like little safety bubble, comfort zone where I can focus on work with like no distractions. But it's been getting more and more depressing when I go there because I just feel like I've outgrown the place. I don't have that many friends there. I've still got like friends I go to the gym with, but no one I'm like really, I feel like I really relate to, right? Because it's like my hometown. But every time I go there in the morning, I usually feel pretty positive because I'm working on big tasks in my business. Then after that, I go to the gym and I feel pretty positive because I'm focused in the gym, I'm training with someone, I'm laughing, whatever. But I would routinely finish the gym, sit in my car and start to feel depressed because then I had free time. There's a phrase, idle time is the devil's hands. What it means is having free time is basically cancerous. You've probably always thought in your life you wanted free time. No. You never want free time. Free time is absolute cancer. Idle time is cancer. What we want is free time that then we can do something stimulating inside of that time, and not stimulating in a bad way like your phone, but stimulating like going to the martial arts gym and sparring your friend or lifting some weights or getting into rock climbing or something. Something that takes up your mind where you kind of need to focus, where you get into a flow state. So the flow state inducing activities are things like sex, video games, sports, competition, conversation, these kinds of things which require most of you. Now, you don't, we're talking about a lack of women here, so obviously sex isn't going to be an option, but sport is amazing for this. So one thing I would say is if you're finding that you have quite negative thoughts, one of the fastest things you can do to get rid of that is go start training a sport that you can actually do for about 3 hours a day. Weightlifting and bodybuilding, you can't. It actually serves you to only train, like lift weights for like 1 hour a day, right? It serves you to not overtrain. When it comes to like body weight exercises, cardio, it comes to like cycling and jiu-jitsu, martial arts, you can actually train 2-3 hours a day. It'll be tough on the body, but you actually can do. Like every professional athlete, every MMA fighter does like 3 hours, 3.5 hours per day. You can actually do that, and it will actually get you a massive increase in skill. Yesterday, I trained with one of the fighters in this gym that I go to, and for 2 hours, we're just blasting on the pads. So he's holding up the pads, telling me, okay, like jab, 1, 2, whatever. And for that time, I had very little thought in my brain. I noticed a few specific times that when we put the pads down and we kind of talked a bit more and, it slowed down, I was like tired, so we were going to have like a 2-minute rest break or something. That's when my mind started to generate thoughts again. Like I actually became quite aware of that when I'm throwing the punches and I'm kind of like, bouncing, whatever, I don't actually get that many thoughts in my brain, but it's only when you're kind of doing nothing and you're just resting and recovering that you start to get thoughts. So you basically just need to keep yourself as busy as possible. Now, being social is awesome, but there's also a ton of other things you can do. You can go learn skills. Fitness is an awesome thing to crack on with for a few hours a day. Today, these thoughts came back, but this time my mind thought of suicide. I've never had this thought before, nor will I ever do something that's stupid, but just the fact that it happened is truly scaring me. I feel lonely, even though I have many friends. I feel lonely, even after having a good time with a girl, and I don't understand why. I seriously need help, Hamza. Let's see what the boys in our community have said to him. I had to use inspect elements here, which basically you can change like the text on your screen, just because Alexander put his phone number here, so I just removed the numbers basically. So that's why his phone number only has like one letter there, but it had the full number, but I removed it just so I wouldn't leak his number. So Alex gave him his WhatsApp. We have like a very supportive community here, so he's just said, text me on WhatsApp, find me on Instagram. You're not alone, bro. I have 28 scars on my body from self-harm, and I know what it's like to feel weak, depressed, and worst of all, losing hope for your future. Let me help you. If not, at least have me as someone to talk to. So who's there being supportive, which is awesome. Lorenzo replies and says, thanks for the help, brother. As I said, I'll never do anything stupid like suiciding, even if my mind thinks of it. Today was truly the first time it happened, and I felt weird. I just want these dark thoughts to end. I went to the gym and talked to a lot of people. I feel much better now. That's awesome. Finn has said, I've got you if you ever want to have a call, bro. This community is really fucking supportive, isn't it? I think you're a great guy, genuinely. Hope everything's all right, and reach out to get my number. Yeah, me and Lorenzo have had a few chats on our calls as well. Good guy, man. Good students. Do you have any advice in terms of socializing, and or have you ever had these kinds of thoughts of not being able to get girls? If so, how did you get through them? Yeah, they're just going to jump on a call. His question here is interesting. Do you ever have these kinds of thoughts where you're not able to get girls, negative thoughts? How do you deal with like negative, hateful, aggressive thoughts in your mind? I'll tell you my answer, but if you want to help Lorenzo as well as anyone else who's going through this, you can leave a comment below, and then I'll send this link to Lorenzo and tell him to read the comments. Because if we can get like 50, 100 comments, which are giving him advice and support like these, that'd be so cool. So you can leave a comment answering his question, what you think he should do about his situation as well, how he should be able to control the negative thoughts. Let's read a couple more comments. Dale said, sorry you're going through this. I know it's a very scary time. Good job reaching out about this. Talk to your close friends or family members, or even reach out to any of the guys here. Yeah. Camden, hit me up if you ever want to talk about it. I know how these thoughts fuck with your head. It plagued me for years, and it is a horrible feeling. Have you tried both the mental health roadmap and the full guide to healing yet? So this is inside of like my paid community. There's like a mental health course in here, and like it gets pretty good results. It's very similar to my full mental health guide, which is for free on YouTube if you want to have a look at that as well. Yeah, he's saying that he feels a lot better now as well after he's had this support from the community. Camden said, if you ever get into that mindset again, remember that you have a whole community of brothers by your side that will fight to the ends of the earth for you. We pretty much all have the same story, so no one understands you more than the guys here. Don't give up when you want to, and never give in to those desires. That is the devil's plan, and he wants to eat you up and spit you out. As long as you have a purpose and a desire to fight one more day, you will come out of this. You will have an amazing life. Don't listen to those thoughts, and if you ever are seriously considering it again, reach out to us because we won't let you go down without a fight. Yeah, it's insane of how negative thoughts you can have even when you've got something going in your life. Like, one of the things you might assume about Lorenzo is like, oh, he needs to be more busy. He needs to have more things in his life. I've spoke to him a bunch, and he's actually like, he's doing a course for his dream job. He wants to be like a pastry baker. So he's studying pastries, like the croissants, or I assume it's croissants, and like pain au chocolat and whatever, like pastry, bakery treats, right? So he's studying for that. He fucking loves pastries, and so do I, actually. And so he's studying. It's going to be like 10, 12-hour days. Hang on, room service is here. Yeah, and so he's got actually like a purpose. He's actually got purpose, direction, goals, work that he can be focused on. So it's interesting that a guy who actually has like a good life, like he's got his actual journey ahead. Most guys feel directionless, and that causes a lot of depression. He actually has his journey ahead. I've spoke to him loads of times in our calls. So it's interesting that you can still be riddled with very much like negative thoughts in your mind. So it's interesting, like if you would give him advice, what would you say when it's not about purpose, it's not even about goals, it's specifically about the negative thoughts? Like, does that make sense? The problem isn't what the thoughts are saying. The problem is the thoughts itself. It reminds me, because I've had the exact same problem. This is what I would call intrusive thoughts. So I had this as genuinely like a life-changing problem in 2019, 2020. And I tell you like the story if you want to hear it, right? You probably know about me. I used to be a weed smoker, so I used to smoke weed almost every day. So at the start of 2019, I remember 2019, like New Year's, 2-3 days after that, I smoked weed for the first time. My best friend was like a stoner. Like, he would smoke. And me and him, I tried to smoke it with him a couple of times, but it never really worked. I didn't know how to smoke, whatever. But a few days after, like the New Year's of 2019, his friend is round, like he works with this other guys, like they're waiters, and he teaches me how to smoke weed. He says like, oh, you've got to take it, you've got to inhale it properly till you cough, whatever. And it hits me hard, and it's so pleasant and blissful, and the food tastes amazing, whatever. And I started to smoke every single day for like more than a year straight, about 1.5 years from that point, right? But after about 3 months, 4 months, wow, it really was, wasn't it? Fuck me. Holy shit. Fucking hell, man. You know why this is affecting me so much? Let me explain it to you, okay? So for the first like while that I used to smoke every single night, not, I didn't smoke crazy amounts, but you'd make like a little tiny little joints for me and my girl, or me and my friend or something, right? It was really pleasant. It would make sex feel amazing, everything. But then I entered like another season of smoking where I had my first paranoid negative high, where I smoked and I started to feel really paranoid that I was going to get caught, that bad things were going to happen. And eventually I started to think about killing myself. Not that, again, that I would actually do it, but the thought came in where I was getting a bunch of negative thoughts. I wasn't present at all. I started to get anxious, and I started to ask myself like, oh, but if this is what life's like, why don't you just kill yourself? And then that made me flip out and make me feel crazy, that I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, why would you be thinking that? And from that point, almost every time I got high, I got thoughts like that. You know what just made me sit down in some stillness just a few seconds ago? Because that point was a few months into smoking, like when I started smoking, probably around like April 2019. I only quit smoking in May 2020. So for a year straight, I kept on smoking basically every single day with those kinds of thoughts emerging. Just negative, hating my life. For me, it was about money and job and my sort of status, my situation. For Lorenzo, it was about women. I was getting a bunch of negative thoughts. Oh, you're a failure. Your family hates you. That you don't even speak to them. You left university. You're just unemployed. You don't know what you're doing with your life. You're a scruff. You're poor. All of this, and I would just keep smoking every day. It was like a vicious cycle. So for me, obviously, it's like it was completely my fault because I kept on smoking. And what was odd was like when I wouldn't smoke, I would actually sometimes have like a fun day. I would be present, I'd have fun and everything. But the moment I'd smoke, I'd get these like thoughts emerging again. So it was just so horrible to have that. And I remember like actually fixing this problem after a long time because I started to realize it wasn't what these thoughts were saying. It was just the thought itself that was the problem. It was because I was not mindful. And so I realized that I had to become more mindful, have less thoughts, and get more into the zone of real life and start like, working out more and doing challenging things so that then you're in a flow state. And that really helped me. And then eventually when I left that situation and I moved back home, you know my story, like in 2020, I moved back home in COVID and then I just stopped smoking. And I didn't get almost any like intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts from that moment. Mohammed replied and he said, I want to give you my support, brother. In the past, I had really tough times too, where all there was between me and ending it was just my faith in God. And the scary thought of seeing my mother crying to her deceased, too coward to live son. That's tough, bro. Bearing in mind, he's talking about when he was about 15 or 14, because he's only 16 years old right now, Mohammed. He's 16. Never acted on any of these thoughts, because deep down I know this voice is not from me. It's the inner enemy, the bastard that wants me to fail. I won't let him succeed, yeah. These thoughts are not you, even though the voice sounds like yours. These thoughts are coming from like the Jeffrey weak part of our brain, the same thoughts that told us to smoke weed, to watch porn. You know how sometimes your brain is on your side and it tells you to exercise and eat clean and not eat the junk food and not play video games and not watch porn, not scroll on Instagram, whatever. But other times your brain actually is rampantly trying to convince you to do the bad habit. That's like a different part of your brain. That's the inner Jeffrey, the inner enemy. And you've got to be kind of conscious. You should almost view it as like the enemy that you're like listening. You're almost like a psychopath. You're like, yeah, motherfucker, like I'm going to listen to you. Right now you're stronger than you can imagine. If in my faith, God doesn't test the soul beyond what it can bear. And I'm fully convinced of that. Whatever you're facing right now, you have the ability to face it and the strength to overcome it, but the choice is up to you. It's like giving you a 5 kg dumbbell, which objectively you could lift with the level of strength you have, but you're too lazy to lift it. If death is not the solution, then what is? Life is the solution. If the problem exists within the realm of existence, then the solution also is that there is a law of the universe that you just have to find it. Yeah. Reading everybody above, it seems many have known dark struggles. Seems like you have so many people around you and you still feel alone in a room. That's so true, right? He's in a course right now where he said like 90% of the people, like the students, are girls. So he's surrounded by girls, by people. He has friends. He has his family as well. And he still feels alone. What's going on in your relationships? What can you feel inside? Are there things or something that's triggering these fluctuations? Has it always been like this? Honestly, I wish I'd believed this when I was younger, but this is one of those cases where therapy, if you can find someone you like talking to, might help. Us being internet pals can't really help. We all have scars inside. I would actually disagree with that. Honestly, I would completely disagree with that because I'm quite like a little bit against therapy, especially for men. I think most therapists are nowhere near qualified to help men. I don't think it's like a degree that you need to help men. I think it's an understanding through sheer volume of speaking to so many guys. Like, I hate to say, I probably sound like a crazy maniac for saying this, but I genuinely believe that speaking to me is more effective at helping someone than speaking to a therapist, like a male who's going through problems like this. Because chances are, if you're going through some kind of problems on like the self-improvement journey, chances are not only have I been through them and maybe have potentially solved it for myself, but I've also spoke to a few hundred guys personally, like one-to-one. Like think about it, I've been in this space for 4 years, and almost every single day I speak to a couple of guys in a video call about their problems. Think about the sheer volume that I've gotten from speaking to guys, never mind the 1,000 videos that I've posted and the tens of thousands of comments that I've received and messages and everything. So just be careful, like considering therapy, by all means go ahead and give it a try, because I've given therapy a try multiple times, different types of therapy, EMDR, CBT and everything, and it's always been fairly poor. A very bad service in my opinion, especially when it comes to men. Men don't need some fucking nerd who's studied in university to be sat there trying to walk you through a framework. They need like a masculine mentor that you can say, okay, this is what's happening, and that mentor's already helped 50, 100, 500 other guys like you through the problem and can tell you, okay, stop being a pussy, here's the action that you've got to take. It's not talking about your problems, barely ever solves it. If anything, it often kind of makes it worse because you're just feeling the bullshit come up, you're feeling upset and everything. You need a guy to tell you, yeah, like you need to meditate 20 minutes a day, you need to journal, you need to do this action, you need to do this grind to get over this. Lorenzo says, I definitely have had thoughts like this back then when I was still a chump. I cured them by playing video games, eating and being a spurg, and now that I've improved, I have a more clear vision, but those relationship thoughts come to my mind more often. The reality is that I want a feminine girl next to me. This is probably the thing I've never had in my life and need the most. I know that it takes time, and I am putting good effort into finding a girl, however these thoughts come back. See, just be careful of this, because many of us feel the same way. As young guys, we often think about women and feminine energy. We want a girl by our side. But it's often the wrong way to go about it. When you find yourself obsessing over just wanting women in general, or obsessing over this girl, that's often not the right energy that you need to attract a girl. And it often shows like there's problems in your life that you need to go fix before you even consider dating, love, and sex. Namely that of like purpose, self-respect, whatever it is. For Lorenzo, I don't think it's purpose. I think he has his purpose quite clear. He's not mentioned it on this, but I've spoke to him a bunch of times, so I think he's quite clear on his purpose. But for him in this situation, it might be more just general mental health. It might be brotherhood and male friendship. It might be self-respect and self-esteem. Does he even respect himself? First, you work on those things. Then what you'll find, which is so interesting, because you'll feel this for yourself maybe 6 months, 12 months from now, the thoughts around girls will change from just, oh, I want a girl in my life, to, oh, I want Sarah, I want this girl, I want like this specific girl, she's high quality. Do you notice how when it is like, oh, I want a feminine girl next to me, this is like, it's like almost like a weird situation to be in, where it's like you almost don't even care who it is. That shows like a lack inside of you, that you're willing to just fill it with anyone who meets like the bare minimum standard. Do you see how that can be a problem, where if we gave him a girl, he'd be so happy for a couple of days, but you can imagine he'd probably turn weirdly toxic, he'd fuck up the relationship, he'd be oddly kind of mean to her or whatever, because he's not looking for the woman that he really respects and wants to be with. He just wants a woman next to him. When you just want a woman next to you, usually that shows you're not fulfilled in other areas, right? By all means, men want to have sex, men want to fuck, men want to have women next to them. But when the desire is so bad that you're feeling so negative, often it's because there's something in your life that's lacking first before women, and we're only using the women as like a patch over it. Kind of like a fat guy starts craving sugar loads. Is it that he needs sugar in his life? Or is it that he started craving sugar because he had a feeling of like anxiety or boredom, and that's where the craving came in from, right? Is it that your craving for women is like the natural thing, which it might be, but is it that it's the right thing for you? Or is it that you first felt kind of bored, then the feeling came in? you first felt dissatisfied with the day, you weren't very disciplined or productive or whatever, you didn't really spend much time with guys, then the thought of the craving of women came in. So often the craving of women is actually more of like a symptom of an unfulfilled life. It's interesting that the guys who are really good with girls and the guys also who are like kind of ready to get a girl, they don't think about girls like much at all. That you can understand that, right? You've seen so much about like the getting girls advice. The guy who gets the girl is the one who doesn't really think about girls too much because his brain is focused on the goal instead. The version of you that wakes up thinking about girls, that's on Instagram thinking about girls, is often the version of you that repels girls because they don't like that energy in a guy. So what do you do in this situation practically if you do want to get a girl but like you're obsessed over them, you're almost needy, pushing them away? You've got to regulate and focus back on the mission, the goals, the work, obsess over it, watch like podcasts which teach you things about like your goals, your work, whatever career, business you want to get into. You watch like podcasts, videos, you hop on calls, you excitedly talk about it, you make like a vision board, you read a book on it and stuff. You start to like obsess over the work, the mission, the plan, you visualize it all, you obsess over it. Then what you'll find is as you go through your day super obsessed with the mission, women just gravitate towards you because they find it so attractive when a guy isn't actually focused on them. And this is a good phrase right here. Love sadly cannot be rushed. All you can do is find some purpose to fill the void, and hopefully you'll be ready enough to not let her pass you by. That's a good sentence right there. Gabriel says, I can relate to this. Here's my story that I think will help you. I was living a pretty happy life for a time. Then around 2022, I joined Hustlers University and started grinding hard in there. A few months went by and things got worse and worse for my mental health. I'll spare the details to keep this concise, but one day I spontaneously had a suicidal thought, just once, and instantly knew I needed to change. I've been spending all this time trying to set up a copywriting business instead of working on my purpose. I felt drained, unfulfilled, and unsuccessful. I left Hustlers University and just focused purely on my mental health, hobbies, and literally just having fun. Within a short space of time, I was back to my old self, happy and fulfilled. The lesson I learned is simple. Focusing too much on the grind is deeply unhealthy and unproductive. Focusing too much on whatever self-improvement or business goal you have, even if it seems constructive, is dangerous. You have to make space for fun, for hobbies, and for doing things simply because you want to do them. If I was you, I would honestly go into a fun chapter and just focus on having fun and improving your mental health at the same time. I half agree with this and half disagree. I totally agree that having fun and hobbies is very important, but I also would say that that is actually part of the self-improvement journey. I think self-improvement isn't necessarily like hustle culture, just work on your business all day, because I don't do that. I think self-improvement is where you actually realize the value of like going on a walk in nature, speaking to your mother for an hour, doing rock climbing because it's fun, those kinds of things. So I would actually say that that is self-improvement in and of itself. Lorenzo says, this is very good advice. Thanks, man. I've had fun today going to the gym, seeing my friends, and I feel much better now. I think that my mind hasn't thought of just having fun in the last few months, but this is something so important to have. I will definitely follow your advice. Thanks. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, he's got a bunch of support on this post. That's yeah, I think we'll leave it there for this advice, but if you want to give Lorenzo some advice, you can comment it below and I'll send him this link. Obviously, I appreciate him being so open and honest with this, writing this post out, and all the boys who've come in to support him, which is so awesome, isn't it? Look at when you've got a community where you write a post and so many guys message you saying like, oh, let's hop on a call, message me, let's do this, bro. So it makes me very proud to be the owner of this community. So you can join it with the links below, by the way, as well, if you want to. You can subscribe to this channel as well. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.